Today I'm going to change the final drive oil in here on my son's 2005 GS. It's something that BMW themselves say it's not required after the first 600 mile service. It's an oil for life, and that may well be true. However, a couple of years ago I serviced a friend's 2007 GS that he just bought, and the oil was rancid. It smelt terrible. It was thick black. So I was pleased I did change it. But there's another advantage. On this model you'll see that we've got a drop, this swing arm, to be able to get the oil out. And that means that we can look at the splines on the drive shaft inside here. And on that 2007 model, not only were they as dry as anything, they were totally covered with rust. So it's no harm, and it's not as hard a job as it may appear to be able to change this oil and drop and check this spine. So we take off the rear hugger, which is 3 bolts in total. If you do put a stainless steel kit in, each stainless steel bolt is absolutely fresh. It's been supplied obviously brand new, and you need to copper grease all the threads so that they don't lock in and cause any damage or anything. So just put a little bit of copper grease on them. This hugger, I don't know whether it's still made, Pyramid, it came with the bike, is very useful. It stops so much of the mud and dirt flicking up under the bike. You still get it, but nowhere near as much as you do on a bike without this. So you need a torque socket, and then just lift the wheel off, and that gives you a very good chance of cleaning the wheel, better than you'll ever have at any other time, especially the inside spokes. An opportunity to take the brake off. You take these two, you don't realise that there are two 17mm studs actually that hold the rear hugger on. And what we do with a couple of cable ties, we will hang that up to keep it out of the way for the moment. BMW, in their wisdom on this model, never put a fill-in hole, as I said before, to be able to refill the oil. But there is a way in, and it's through the speed sensor that is here. So we take that out, and then we can refill the oil. And just beware what we're going to do now. This is the speed sensor cable. It's hooked on there, which you can pull off like that, and it's hooked in there, which just pulls out. So that there you have it, remembering where it goes back. Now we've got to have a small torque to undo this here. And the torque takes this screw out at the top of the speed sensor. Be quite gentle with this. Let me just get a cloth and wipe that off. So the draining bolt is this one here, torque 45. We won't take it right out now, we'll wait until we tip it so we can drain it, so I don't spill any just at the moment. Now we go back to the torsion bolt itself, this one just here, and undo this. Now the time it's come to take this bolt out. support the rear axle and it literally drops down. We haven't undone the drain plug yet, otherwise you would get oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Water from when I washed it the other day has got in there, and it shouldn't have, because it should be sealed around here. We can now drain it. So I don't know whether you can see in there how much water has gone in through the rubber boot, and is filling this final drive spline. Quite amazing. So it shows how the rubber boot must be sealed all the way around. So this is the grease I use, Castrol Monolube alloy. It's a white paste. You just take a toothbrush, put a little bit on the spine, on the toothbrush, and then put it into the spine and rub it round thoroughly, get it really into the grooves of the universal joint, and the same down the bottom. Just take it right round, brushing it in. It's very, very sticky, and then that'll help to keep the whole thing lubricated. Well, the rubber boot does seem fine. It seems okay. Now you put around the edge of it some silicone grease that will prevent the water going in, and it clips back in, and you hear it click in, and it fits on tight there. And then you apply some silicone grease around the edge, the upper edge. It's quite a revelation to me, that. I thought you'd only get water in when you got a split boot, because the seal on the boot is very good, and you put in this grease around as well. Obviously not. You've got to be really good with it. So put it all around there. Right, let's try and line them up. It's easy without the boot on. You can see exactly what you're doing. With the boot on, of course, you can see nothing. It's trial and error. And it has to go in. There it is. And that's how quick it can be. And you have to have that bolt ready, as I said, because if you've got to go back to your bench now, you're in trouble. Bring the torsion bar down. Sorry, I didn't have the camera high enough then to show you putting that bolt in. You need two hands to do that. So all the concentration has been on doing the spline, greasing it, cleaning it out, getting rid of all the water that I never realised was there. Forgot one of the main things is, of course, replacing the oil in here that is now thoroughly drained off while we've been spending time on this. So the first thing now is to replace the drain plug with a new O-ring. So the drain plug for the final drive, you need to take off the O-ring and put on a new one, and then just take it up. So this torques up to 20 Newton meters with the new O-ring on. Now, as we said before, the only way that you can fill this, if not through the drain hole, is the speed sensor hole. And it's 220 millilitres of oil in this model. Changes to 180 millimetres. I did an RT the other day, but this one is 220. On the later machines they have a filler hole and a drain hole right at the bottom, so you don't actually have to drop the swing arm at all. So let me just now get my syringe that I only use for final drive oil. So I do 100 millilitres at a time. You've got to be exact with this because there's no way of checking unless you take the drain plug out and go up to that but this is a much more accurate way of doing it. 100 millimeters in the syringe. Just buy yourself one of these off Amazon. They're very cheap and they enable you to do this so much easier. And then you inject it in. It's slow, but it works. And now you can put the speed sensor back. So feed it in through there. You can't make a mistake with this because of where the screw goes. This is it on. To measure the thickness of the brake disc itself. It starts when it's new at 5 millimeters. The minimum it must be is 4.5 millimeters. This is 4.87. So it's not even halfway through its life. These are very expensive, so you hope they don't wear out that much. But riders don't use the back brake anywhere near as much as the front brakes. We'll see whether the front brake is as good when we come to it. 4.88 at that side. So that's good. So we drop the brake discs back into position, which are very easy, and the two long bolts. So we put these bolts back in that actually hold the hugger as well, and this one you don't know where to position it yet because it depends where your hugger is, so it's a little bit difficult to torque these up at the moment. The other job that people are often very nervous of is taking the brake discs out, the pads. So to check them, it's actually so easy. First, especially at this stage when you've got the wheel off, it's even easier. But you can do it without the wheel off. You pull out that pin there, a locking pin, and don't lose it. And then on the rear brake, which is different than the front brakes, you knock out a retaining pin. This punch is a little bit too wide now, so let me get something that will fit in. So a long rod of steel. Now these pins get so rusty. I have the advantage I can put them in the lathe and just sand them right down, which I always do. So pull them out and you can see that they are really thick, but I have a method to be absolutely positive. We measure them. Now the minimum thickness is 1 millimeter. I can see without even measuring them, these are way over that. But just a vernier gauge is easiest with this. Take that measurement, 8.50, take the measurement of the base plate, let's say 3.50, so therefore the pads are 5 millimeters thick and the minimum is 1. I just rub a little bit of copper grease on the back to stop them seizing, and they can slide right back in. Well, the final thing is to torque up the torsion bar, the bolt that goes through there, which is an incredible 100 Newton meters. So I have to use a big torque wrench to get up to that. So before I put the wheel back on, I have this WD-40 brake cleaner, because there's been so much oil and fluid around. I just want to make sure there's nothing on the brakes itself, on the disc itself. You can just spray this liberally. It can go on the, you wouldn't think you could spray it, would you? The actual disc and the pads, but that's what it's made for.